Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
So iWork is also out, new keynote. In fact, Craig tells me that we'll be doing my presentation on Thursday in the new Keynote 09. I'm excited.
Keynote is awesome. Yeah. So really, I mean, for Keynote nerds like me, the new things are really, really fantastic. They have some new alignment guides where when you throw down objects onto a slide, these alignment guides come up and they show you your spacing between objects. So once you have all three objects, 3 or 4 in the same space, it goes plink and just shows you how many pixels apart they are. I mean, for a layout geek, it's pure heaven. And there's also a lot of improvements on the way you do actions and builds on the inside. Lots of details that really make it a lot more precise. Leo's making gestures.
What? No, I'm not.
Leo's interpretation.
He's doing my interpretive
the sign language is a little bit rough, but
I learned that in the Bali. I'm sorry, go ahead.
In Bali or Bali?
Bali.
When I was there with the Dalai Lama.
So it's cool.
I love the thing that you could do. They showed it with cards, but obviously you could do it with a lot of things where you have them in one order in one slide, another order in the other slide, and it will automatically transition and reorganize the stuff. That each one has to be an individual object. It has to be the same object in the second slide.
The same object in the second slide, and it's their new thing called Magic Move. But it's a very fast way to get things to precisely move kind of from one slide to the next. It'll do a difference in location and scaling. But all you need to do is just make another slide, rescale it and move it, put on that transition, and it goes into the next one.
That's what I was going for.
That last little inflection point, because
was that the audio effect provided by Bruce Lee?
Partially, but the interpretive dance by Leo wasn't happening. Okay.
Pages, which has always been a good word processor, okay word processor, really more for presentation. You must like Merlin, the idea that you can get this blank screen and just. You always like that.
Why me?
We call it the Merlin feature.
Well, what was the word processor that you recommended?
Right Room or
there's a bunch of them that have full screen mode. I think it's a really neat idea. I mean, I'm not sure how much people will use it that aren't, heavily medicated dorks like me, but I think it's a great idea.
ADD button.
Another thing that strikes me about the iWork apps, like the iPlay, what is it, iLife, is that it's really interesting to me that Apple is constantly, this is kind of a Gruber sort of point, but Apple is constantly confounding companies who expect them to emulate someone else. And you look at an app like Pages, and it's so in your face. Like, you know what? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to make this kind of application that we want to make. And it must be so confounding to their competitors that they're never chasing the thing that people quite think that they're chasing. And I mean, look at us. Like, we come to this thing, we read all these rumors, and we come here, and they're forever coming up with something, at least in my experience, I've never heard of. And then they come up with something like, Pages, and they pull out this thing that's been an open source with the full screen mode. That thing's been an open source and kind of shareware apps for a while. I don't know. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I think the way I would interpret it is it's very difficult to predict where Apple's going to go. It's very hard to look at where they are and say what they're going to do next.
They're constantly redefining what the rules of the game are.
Yes.
And so they won't compete fairly because they won't have the fight that other people want them to have. Microsoft would much rather have them go, we're going to really get into macros. Right. And they're like, no, we just want this thing to be awesome.
Right.
Sorry.
Macros?
Macros.
Well, I think this is a really important point. People might say, well, we want to see new hardware at MacWorld Expo, but you got to have the software, and the best way to compete against an IBM PC compatible and Microsoft Windows is to have something like iMovie and say, take that Windows Movie Maker. I mean, it just is a very compelling selling point for Macintosh. You've got to have the software, and the fact that it comes with it is great. They also offer a deal on iWork. In fact, they announced some bundles which are interesting. If you buy a new Mac, iWork is only $49, and they have a $169 bundle that's iWork, iLife, both 09 and Leopard. So if you have to make, if you have an older Mac and you have to make that upgrade, that's, I think that's these
about
are all
half the price of Vista to get the new OS plus all the apps you need to really do a lot of work.
Do you think that Apple is thinking about Microsoft? I mean, you think that they're trying to compete, or is it
only when they make an ad?
Yeah.
I think they're just trying to create cool software. I mean, going back to the iPhoto, I mean, we've all heard how many Macs have been sold on the back of Photo Booth. You know, people see Photo Booth and it's so cool they actually buy a Mac.
True.
You show someone that face recognition software. I mean, I'm awfully undisciplined in that I've got thousands of photos that I know I must tag, but I just haven't got the time to go through and tag them. And now with iPhoto, in one fell swoop, you know, I want to tag things by people, and it'll just do it for us. So, you know, people see that in the Apple Store, they're going to just buy a Mac based on that.
Every family event, when I whip out a computer that's got Photo Booth on it, every person in the room is delighted. I've sold 2 Macs that way to family, just on Photo Booth alone.
Did you get a commission?
No, but they're not very bright either, and they drink a lot, so they buy whatever I tell them.
Oh, that's cool.
terrific!
I think you're totally right. And look at like whatever Guy Kawasaki, say what you will about the man today. But what did he do? He helped make this platform great by saying that like the reason people are going to come to this is because the applications are fantastic.
It's about, ultimately it is about software. It's got to be about software. You know, it also was in the nick of time that iPhoto came out, because had you asked me what my pick of the week was going to be, it was going to be the new Picasa for Mac, which is just now coming out and is a lot better than the old iPhoto. And all of a sudden, Apple leapfrogs them with the face recognition and the places.
And I know as an Aperture user, I'm really stuck with
I'm bummed. I use now I have to have 2 copies, one in Lightroom and one in iPhoto, because I want those features.
Just go to iPhoto, and then you can move it to Aperture later.
Well,
You should be later.
my hope and desire, Joe Shore, in case you're listening, is that some of these features would migrate up, which is an unusual migration path, but I'd like to see some of these features migrate up into Aperture.
absolutely.
It's not going to depend on whether they make Aperture a priority.
Was that a pun?
It's kind of a photo joke.
That was fun.
Oh, I get it. Oh, that's good. I get it.
I shudder to think that you're going to make another joke like that.
I can't quite focus on what you're saying.
You keep this up, you'll be isolated.
We have a winner.
Ladies and gentlemen, the previously unscripted minute was brought to you by MacWorld. MacBreak.
All right, enough of that.
No, just have to stop it, please.
I really. Wow. You guys are a bunch of camera nerds. I think the iWork Online also looks very compelling. Again, another shot across Google's bow. I mean, it's Google Docs that this competes with, right?
No.
No.
You're not creating documents online.
Ah, you're right. You have
That's the thing. Google Docs.
Not yet.
Right.
Good point. Never know.
But you have to have iWork to do this, and that's a disadvantage. Although you can
You
share
don't
with
have to
anybody.
have iWork on the back end, though.
Right, but to create and share, you have to start with iWork. But then anybody can use it, which I think is nice.
And given that it's going to be a fee-based service, and they didn't say whether that was subscription or whether
why it's not part of MobileMe? Why it should be part of your MobileMe?
Maybe they don't want it to be part of MobileMe, given the fact that battleship is still taking on water.
No, come on. I mean, it's obviously part of MobileMe. It should come with
fine.
MobileMe.
It's
perfectly for me.
Absolutely perfect.
Dropbox, no. I've turned iDisk off.
If it doesn't have the
I
word
put a piece
box,
of black tape over the screen so I don't even have to see the iDisk thing that keeps mounting. Oh, actually, you know what? I do want you to override all my contacts. I should have said.